This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very excited to be speaking with Quinn Shephard and Samir Mehta about Under the Bridge. How are you both doing today?
Doing well.
Doing good. How's
Yeah.
yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. I've had a chance to dive into this series, which is very interesting, pretty dark, but also sometimes a bit unexpectedly light. Can you tell me how you both came to know about the story and to decide it should be a show?
Yeah, I read the book in 2019, so it's been a bit of a journey for me. I just found it so fascinating. I mean, both the true story when you hear about it, I was so shocked that I had never heard it before. You know, obviously it happened in the 90s and it's such a memorable case. I had never, even heard Rena Burke's name before. And I read the book. I was really taken by it. You know, I'm not a true crime person per se, and I found the book was very sensitive and it had a very beautiful exploration of childhood and coming of age and kind of these very universal themes of loss and wanting love and searching for family. And yeah, I thought it was a story that really should be told.
Yeah, and I came on in top of 2022, so it was already a greenlit series at Hulu. They were looking for a showrunner, and it's funny. I had told my manager just before this, like, no more murder mysteries, like no more crime. Then this came along, and I looked at it, and I realized there's just so much personal inside of the story for me, and there were just so many themes that I was eager to write about anyway that just happened to fit naturally here, and so it just kind of made sense.
When I was at the Tribeca premiere of Blame a few years ago, and I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed Not Okay. And it's like those two are great projects, but they don't really fit in with this. This is not what I would have expected next for you. Is that a sort of a conscious transition to something very different?
It's so funny because I actually see them as quite similar. I mean, obviously not okay on its face is like a bit farcical, and so it's easy to say how could they not be so different. But I think that all of my films, and obviously this isn't a film, but I think all of my projects have this central theme of like challenging a viewer to put themselves in the shoes of often female characters who do like very challenging or unlikable or confusing things, and challenging an audience to explore like radical empathy. I think all of my projects have been a bit like controversial in that sense. And so it's very different in that it's crime and it's very dark and it's a period piece. But I guess for me, it felt very natural as a writer. It was all the themes that I always love to explore. And obviously getting to direct a young cast has always been a guiding force for me. And it was the same on this.
Samir, how is this different from other TV projects that you've done recently? Was it the different true crime thing that you knew you really didn't want to do that turned into something
Yeah,
else?
I mean, well, the benefit on this one was that I got to finally step, out of the role of just a writer on staff into the seat of showrunner. So I got to really like guide the direction of how we were going to do this. So it was nice to very deliberately kind of walk down the path of where a true crime show, where a murder mystery would go, and very deliberately subvert expectation and kind of slowly bring upon a dawning on the audience that they're not actually watching what they thought they were.
I like that. I think that's very interesting. In watching episode four struck me particularly because of just it starts from this very sort of nostalgic flashback type thing, and then sort of it goes to a much more serious sort of unexpected ending. I think that's a
Yeah,
great sort of way of looking at the show that you're going to have some fun throughout it in the way you won't expect, and then it will sort of grab you back without much warning, which is
absolutely.
jolting certainly, but
Yeah,
also
yeah,
invigorating, I think.
yeah, yeah.
So. I remember seeing Lily in Fancy Dance at Sundance like
Mm.
a year and a half ago, and knowing that she was going to really blow up because Killers of the Flower Moon, was in the process. Did you expect that the timing of this would come when she's just like so hot and in demand?
I mean, we couldn't have
Yeah.
predicted this.
And I think also we were supposed to be out maybe a year ago. So writer strike, like all kinds of things. But yeah, so it definitely a happy accident.
I think she and Riley are really great together. What was it like working with these two actresses who I think for independent film fans they're well aware who they are, but I'm not sure that everybody really knows yet who they are.
They're just like electric on screen together. It was like you really couldn't ask for, we would write the words and be like, oh God, is it good? Is it good? And then you'd see like these two incredible actresses just make it feel so effortless and indie and nuanced and just have this incredible chemistry. And it just made our jobs easy. And it was sweet because they had never met before the show, but they had been writing to each other for a long time, like on Instagram, and like they'd spoken on the phone. And I think that they had been looking for something to do together. And it was a kind of just kismet that they were both so perfect for these roles.
You mentioned also the young cast, which I feel like this is sort of like the very dark, serious version of Mean Girls sometimes that we're seeing, like in a very depressing, disturbing way. Was there any sort of framing for those scenes just in terms of approaching them with sort of any boundaries?
I mean, it required a lot of sensitivity.
Yeah.
The cast was so young,
It was also important to us to cast them young and true to age, so that it felt very real.
Yeah, I mean, Tika, who plays Rena, was 12 when we shot the pilot. So the kids were all like between the age of 12 and 16 when we were filming.
Yeah.
I think it was just a conversation with each actor, about their comfort level. Obviously, like their parents were always there. We had, like a counselor, therapist type person, who they could talk to. And when they first arrived, the teens, I think we sat down and did like a sharing circle and we talked about the crime, we talked about bullying, and I think everyone knew we were going to be diving into sort of the most sensitive aspects of being a teenager. And they were all at that age, but they all just came into it with like so much maturity and so much passion to do justice by the story.
I think for TV fans, Archie Panjabi is probably the most recognizable face, and it's a very, very different kind of role from the one that she broke out with in American television. Can you just talk about what it was like to work with her?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We were in the writers' room months and months and months before we even talked about casting. We would like come up with a scene and know even then this is going to be really hard to portray. Like it's so subtle, it's so nuanced. Like, is it even really on the page? And we would joke, Archie will figure it out. So we just kept speaking of it that way, like she's going to do it. It's just inevitable. And I think we like manifested that into reality. And it was everything we could have dreamed
before she was cast, like months before she knew about us, we knew about her.
Is this the kind of show that you would recommend people wait and then sort of binge the whole thing, or it's important to sort of pace it and watch a little bit at a time?
I think it depends on your particular viewing style, but I mean, I'm a fan personally of having to wait because I think it's if you can kind of keep coming back, and I hope that people do keep coming back. It's important to, I think, take that week to digest, think about it, talk to your friends about it. Like I enjoy that water cooler culture that we seem to have lost. So I would say binge it if that's the only way you'll watch it, but I hope you take the time and consume it slowly.
What he said.
Well, it certainly is its own thing. Are there other limited series or films or things that you think people should sort of look to as reference points for whether this is something that they'll find accessible?
What was your comparison?
8th Grade meets The Sopranos. So yeah, if you're ever like, I want to see those two, but together, Under the Bridge.
I think I sort of thought of more like a less religiously oriented Under the Banner of Heaven, but that's not at all what you said, which I think speaks to what this is, that it's a lot of things all together.
Yeah.
Oh, certainly, I'm sure if you loved The Act or if you like Sharp Objects or that sort of thing, I think that there's a genre there. But I think we did what we could to be trying to make something that felt wholly original and had just like elements of ourselves and of just the true story in it. So I don't know, hopefully all different kinds of people like the show.
I know you've both worked with Hulu before. What was the process of collaborating with them on this like?
They had like, I mean, it was a long process, I guess, just again because of like strikes and things like that. So it was an opportunity, actually different than most shows in that like we were able to start and stop and start and stop just because of circumstance. So they were definitely able to like come in and like weigh in at different points where that I think a normal TV schedule wouldn't have allowed for.
Yeah, it was like very collaborative, very involved. Yeah, I mean, it was also great because we had they allowed us to really have like the budget and scale that we needed to make
Yeah.
this work, and also make it work with, they supported us casting all true to age kid hours actors in the roles, and kind of really understood that that was our vision, and that created its own little production pretzel, but they helped us get through that.
And to be experimental with the genre. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
that easy to say you have Riley Keough and Lily Gladstone. What if we just don't see them for an episode in the middle of the season? It's a bit of a risk,
And they
and
were like,
and they were cool with it.
Awesome. Well, I think it paid off. Thank you both so much for talking to me today.
Yeah.